We did it again. We made it till Friday. Welcome to the weekend. We're going to have a good one too. But real quick, before we get there, just one thing I want to talk about. And you see what the title says: love somebody better if you can. And I think most of us can. So you might say, hey, what you mean by love somebody better? Because I already give out a lot of love. But, you never know. Like it might be, a friend or a person you haven't spoken to in a while, somebody that, may have been on your mind to reach out to or to call or, just to, even if you don't feel like calling, just sharing a text with them and saying, hey, look, what's going on with you? How you been? It's good to hear from you, because just like anything else, we never know when it's the last time we're going to hear from somebody. So, if that is on your mind and you want to do it, I say, hey, look, this is the weekend. Today is the day. Go for it. All right. Because, you know, um, like anybody, like all of us, we get mad, we get upset, certain things that, we really don't care for that has happened, with us. And I know we've talked about friendships a little bit, well, actually a lot this week, but, just wanting to focus on saying, hey, listen, you're my friend, you're my family member, you're, even if in some cases, if you could do it, you're my ex. So, I just wanted to make sure, that you were doing okay. And a little story behind that is that I think I've told this before, but when I was in a bad accident a few months ago, and like I said, a lot of friends stepped up. So this is not to diminish anybody and what anybody did, but one of my other buddies, the homie George from Detroit, went to Virginia Union. Um, he lives here in Philly now, but what he did was, just out of the clear blue, I never told anybody like, hey, I need any money. And even now, I'm pretty straight. My parents still look out for me. Thank y'all. But and everything's going good, until I get totally back up on my feet. But the thing is just that out of nowhere, my little Cash App thing goes off. So, I'm thinking to myself, shoot, ain't nobody sending me no money. So, you know what I'm saying? It must be that monthly statement thing. Anybody ever get the little dollar sign thing up there and you think you didn't hear it go cha-ching or whatever, but you just see it up there and you're thinking to yourself, oh, yeah, what somebody, then you're like, oh man, it's just a monthly reminder telling me what my monthly statement is. Do I care about my monthly Cash App statement? Well, I guess I do for tax purposes. But anyway, so and this is one of my guys that we might talk only like, I don't know, maybe 3 times a month, if that. Unless, especially if it's not football season, we'll only talk a few times a month or whatever, and we'll just randomly check up on each other. And just out of nowhere, he sent me $50. Right? It was a Cash App for $50. Now the thing is that, I mean, of course, we all know, $50 isn't a huge amount, but I'm telling you what it meant for me, for him to say, and I called him and I said, well, gee, I said, well, why'd you Cash at me $50, man? I know, you got to get some stuff done with your car. I know, you got other stuff that you need to do. You got your own kids and, stuff that you got to pay for. And he just said, you know what, man, you've always been a decent friend to me and you've always helped me out or tried to help me out when you can. And, that really did, that meant a lot to me because it actually meant probably, more than the $50 because it was just like, wow, like somebody who unsolicited, how sometimes you'll be on the phone with a friend and you'll be like, oh man, well, yeah, I haven't eaten all day. I haven't such that I would sure love to go get something to eat, right? So there was like no insinuating, none of that. And just out of the clear blue, like I said, he did that. And I said to him, I said, gee, look, I'm okay right now. Like here, like I'm gonna send you, the $50 back. And he was like, no. He was like, no, I'm not taking it back. You keep it. And it made me think to myself, Because you ever have a time before, because like I always tell y'all, I'm guilty of a lot of this stuff too. But you ever have a time before where somebody might say to you, "Hey, how you doing, friend? Do you need anything? If you need anything, let me know." And that always feels good. But what I mean by saying love somebody better is that even with that, instead of doing that, sometimes just take it a step further. If you know one of your friends is working a double, or one of your kids are of adult age, and with certain things that they want to do, even if you could squeeze it out, if it's $20, $30, and I'm not trying to make it about a money issue, but what I'm saying is that sometimes those little gestures just make people feel better, especially if you know that they're in time of need, and if you know that they're struggling, you may only have $40 to spare or $30 to spare for that person, but the thing is that sometimes if you could do it, just do it. I know it's been plenty of times I've done it. When it does, it makes you feel better. Or if you can say, "Hey, listen, I know, things are rough. I'm just gonna," because most of us, because like even me, I can't be paying nobody gas bill. You know what I'm saying? Gas bill a little high, but you might say to yourself, "Hey, look, you know what? How much is your electric bill?" Electric bill is usually like $30 or $40, as long as they ain't not been paying it for the last 3 months. But at least even with that, hey, look, I'm gonna give you something towards your electric bill. You know, like us, just as people, learning how to love each other better, learning how to kind of think. And this is one thing that I've always, and everybody brags about their mother or somebody in their family, but that's one thing that my mom, and probably because I'm her kid too, but she's always had this giving, uh forward thinking type of attitude. And her and I talked about it the other day. She was never materialistic. And, I know we used to sometimes tease her about the cars she drove and stuff like that. But you know what? She really saw the bigger picture. She really did. And she said to herself, look, I got these kids, like, this one's going to Catholic school. This one's going here. This one's in college. This one. So she really chose to say, hey, look, I'm going to hold on to my money because I love my kids. But I know at some point I'm going to have to, for lack of better words, love them better. I'm going to have to possibly help them out along the way. And that's what she's always done. And I'm sure you have somebody like that in your life also. So, like I said, it's as simple as this. Even my girls, they don't like when I do it, but, and then they'll say it reluctantly afterwards. But I'll just say, you know what? I love you. You know what I'm saying? I love you. And, they'll take a second usually, but then they'll come back and say, you know what? I love you too, daddy or dad. As they get old, nobody wants to say daddy no more. That's okay. But anyway, do that, do that. And while you're at it, do something good for yourself. Treat yourself good. Like we always say, because like on Fridays, I try to, tamper it down a little bit and, be a little more relaxed with the vibes because, we're going into the weekend. But, that's what I always want to encourage people to do. Try to do something good for yourself. And while you're at it, do something good for somebody else. You see one of those little kids in the gas station. And the last story I'll tell you for the day, I used to date this one young lady. And I remember I was probably back in my 20s. And she said to me, she was like, well, Greg, why, when we pulled into the gas station and I was so tired. Now, this might have been about 25 years ago. So we would pull into the gas station and she would get gas. And regularly, plus she made way more money than I did, but regularly she would get the kids money. So she would give them the kids at the pump wanting to pump your gas. She would give them $4, $5, you know what I'm saying, like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Jesus Christ. And I said to her, I was like, yo, stop giving people so much money. And I remember one day she just stopped and she said, listen, first of all, it's my money. The second thing she said was that me giving one of these kids out here that could be trying to stick me up or something, me giving them $4 or $5 is nothing in compared to what I just made on my paycheck. Nothing. So, and I'm not asking you to give it to them. So what are you complaining about? And, sometimes you hear stuff, and, I was a little upset with her at the time. But when I thought about it, and the reason why I pointed out it was 25 years ago is because these are some of the things that I still do today. Sometimes it might not even be a kid. It might be somebody a little older. And I know some people say, well, you know what? All they're going to do is take that money and use drugs, talking about the adults that you may give a couple of dollars to. Well, that's up for you to make that judgment call. But yes, we earn the money or get the money however we get it. But still, the same premise has to apply, not just because it's somebody but because you're human. So you have to find a way to love somebody better, even in times when you don't know them, because everybody needs help. And throughout the course of our lives, we don't know what's going to hit us next, right? So we're all going to need some type of help. We're all going to need some type of support. So I'm glad that happened to me back then because it lowered my sense of being arrogant today and not knowing today. But hey, tell me what you think. And until next time, live life. Don't let life live you.